This lesson has a very simple learning objective, and that's just to outline and describe forces. So it's not going to be too heavy, but we just got to get our head around some terminology and a couple of these simple forces. So the first big question is, what is a force?
The force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together.
Now, Obi-Wan's description is, of course, true from a certain point of view. But we need to take a much more scientific approach here. And in junior sciences, most likely in Year 7, the last time we looked at forces, we probably described forces as a push, a pull, or a twist. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but it's very simplified. So it's going to be more accurate for us to describe forces as something that causes an object to undergo motion.
Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the force around you, here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
So a force is any interaction between two or more objects that, when unopposed, will change the motion of an object. And of course, they can take the form of a push, pull, or a twist. Now, they do come in two different categories. We've got contact forces, in which you must have the two surfaces or objects in contact with each other, like a solid high five, or friction, or in this scenario, the thrust force, or air resistance. Alternatively, there are non-contact forces, like an air high five. That was a joke. It's not really a force. Gravity is a better example of this. It is a force acting at a distance. They don't have to be in contact with each other. Another great example is magnetism. So we're going to look at some really specific forces so that we have a vague idea of these throughout the module and just what their definitions are. So the first one we're going to look at is the gravitational force. This is the force of attraction between two masses. Next is the weight force. Yes, weight is a force measured in newtons, and it is the force exerted on a body by gravity. The distinction between weight force and gravity and the gravity force are, they sound, in their descriptions, they sound a little subtle, the difference. When we do worked examples of these, it'll make a lot more sense further down the track. The normal force, one we won't look at too much, but it may pop up from time to time. It is the reaction force exerted by a surface. It's always perpendicular to the surface. So as I'm sitting here in my chair, been sitting in it for too long, that normal force on my bum is causing my bum to ache. But if I leant against the wall here, the wall pushes back perpendicular to the surface. As that normal force, I can feel it. I can feel the force, the wall pushing against me. The friction force is the force resisting the relative motion of surfaces sliding against each other. Tension force, we may or may not look at this one too much, but it may pop up in conversation, is a pulling force transmitted axially by means of a string, cable, chain, or similar one-dimensional continuous object. And the interesting part about tension is it is equal in both directions. Final one I want to quickly mention is the thrust force, which is a reaction force that causes motion of a body. And we'll look at this one definitely in more detail when we do Newton's third law. The final thing I want to mention about forces today is how we diagrammatically represent forces, and we do so with arrows. So in this example here where I have a box, we would call this a system diagram, or even just a plain force diagram, where we just draw a rough sketch of the object we're looking at, and then we draw the forces on with arrows. So if I was to draw a push on this box, it would look like that, and now we have a pull, which would be having the tail of the arrow anchored to it. Now, the problem with these type of diagrams is they can get a little complicated if our object's a little bit awkward to draw, or maybe it's a person or a car. So the simplistic way to do this is what we call a free body diagram. So instead of representing it like the shape, we draw it as a single point, a little dot. And now, obviously, all the people who aren't artists are cheering, yay, I can just draw it as a single dot. And in this case now, we always draw our forces with the tail anchored to the point. So regardless of whether it was a push or a pull, I would always have it looking like a pull. Still not going to change the result to the object. All right, so like I said, very easy introduction just to get our head around some terminology. And we'll start applying this to situations in upcoming lessons.